Turkey has detained more than 1,000 people in dozens of raids across the country. It's the largest roundup of opponents since Turkey's president gained new powers in a recent referendum. 9,000 members of the security forces have also been suspended, all over alleged ties to a US-based cleric accused of orchestrating last year's failed coup attempt. Lisa Daftari joins me now for more on this. She's a Middle East expert and editor-in-chief on the Foreign Desk. Lisa, good to see you. After Erdogan had that big referendum win, well, narrow one actually, which handed him the sweeping presidential power, there was a speculation it could all go one of two ways. He could ease up on the crackdown, build national consensus, or there would be a purge, which would accelerate because he felt emboldened. Now we know which way he decided to go.
Right. And, you know, I interviewed last night a man who was on the Turkish police force for 20 years now. He's living in Washington, D.C., and he said, what we're seeing is exactly what we should have expected from a dictator who has no confidence, meaning he did win the referendum by 51%, but he also knows that 49% of the country is against him. And in the aftermath of that referendum, he's doing everything he can to grab power inside the country by detaining more individuals who he believes are not in line with his policies, and outside the country, going hard after the Kurds, which have long been his main enemy. He has not backed down at all, and right now we see him almost racing the clock to push forward on these two agendas. Yeah,
when you say going after the Kurds, that was an airstrike which Turkey carried out on Kurdish fighters inside Syria and Iraq. They're allies of the United States, and the US was incredibly incensed by this, that it wasn't coordinated with them, and Erdogan did it anyway.
Right. The U.S. is extremely upset about this. On the one hand, we're trying to rally the Kurds. They are the #1 ally in the fight against ISIS, and the Turks, who are also a very strategic ally in fighting ISIS, geographically speaking. They're involved in the fight against ISIS, but they're also carrying out their main priority, which is taking out the Kurds. So I think the U.S. is put in a very difficult dance here. We want to keep, Turkey as this friend of sorts, an ally of sorts, because strategically they are helping us in many ways. But at the same time, we're backing the Kurds, and they didn't give us the heads up in that regard. So I think, Erdogan is scheduled to come to the White House on May 16th. We're going to have a very interesting meeting between Erdogan and President Trump, where a lot of awkward conversations will probably be had.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't forget that Donald Trump congratulated Erdogan on that referendum win. If we look at what's happening in Turkey right now, ever since the coup, the government has targeted Gulenists, those who are accused of supporting the exiled cleric Fethullah Gulen. But now the crackdown, if you look at what's happened in the last 24 hours or so, it seems to expand it to others who might just be sort of in opposition to the government.
Right, and it seems that's why there are so many who believe that Erdogan may have even staged this coup. And we can understand where that translation of this would come about, because this has been a clean sweep. He has used this coup as a justification to take out anybody who doesn't agree with him. We're talking teachers, judges, policemen, members of the military, and hundreds of thousands of people have been put out of jobs, and thousands others detained and put behind bars. And for what? For not agreeing with his rules, laws, what have you. But it's very obvious. I mean, this plan to become this de facto authoritarian, this dictator of sorts, has been long in the making. And I think the referendum, the coup first, was a wake-up call to Erdogan as to there are enemies within, and then to push forward this referendum to really make ironclad. I think what Erdogan realized is, look, I'm not going to be courting the EU, the European countries any longer, so I might as well really consolidate power at home, take a page from the Putin dictator handbook, and at least really make his power at home ironclad so that he cannot be taken down.
Just for context here, Erdogan accuses Gulen, the cleric who's living in exile in the US, of actually plotting this coup. Gulen denies it, but Gulen, the cleric, he was once very close to Erdogan. They were allies at one point.
Right, which is why there are friends of Gulen within Erdogan's circles, and that's what he has fear of. But right now, Gulen is sitting pretty in a suburb of Pennsylvania, and it's more of a justification. He's a 76-year-old cleric, and Erdogan has provided the White House with tons of what he calls evidence showing that Gulen was a participant in orchestrating the coup. The White House thinks differently. The European countries think differently. They don't think that Gulen had any involvement. And right now we have Turkey just blaming everyone for harboring this guy, the U.S. harboring this guy, and everyone else for backing this guy. In the meantime, he's taking out anyone who he believes is not in line with him.
Lisa, we'll leave it there. We're out of time. But clearly, one of the indications that this is not done yet is that Turkey is building a whole lot of new prisons because they're running out of space. So it would indicate the crackdown's not done. Lisa, good to speak with you. Thanks so much.
You too. Thank you.